Now, have you ever wondered what happens to that old clapped-out computer or broken microwave when you throw it out? What about old phones or gadgets that you just haven't got round to recycling? A new report from the UN aims to highlight the environmental dangers that arise from not properly dealing with electronic waste. Sky's Ian Woods has more.
This is what's known in this industry as getting rid of our waste, electrical and electronic equipment. Old computers, domestic appliances, gadgets. Discarded because they're broken, obsolete, or just dated, despite being just a few years old. Every person in Britain throws away an average 25 kilos of equipment every year. And this is where it should end up. At an authorised recycling centre, where it's smashed into pieces, tossed around, and then sorted out into the bits which can be reused. This site in Kent is one of Britain's biggest.
A PC is literally gold to us. So there's probably about 70 grams of gold in every ton of computers. So we spin apart a computer, we create metals and plastics and circuit boards, and we literally melt the circuit boards to create gold from those.
Then there's the huge hill of spaghetti made up of cables and plugs. The current UK recycling rate is 45%. That's remained pretty static for almost a decade. But the government has raised that target to 65% by 2019. That's pretty good by European standards, but the global electric waste mountain grew by 8% over the past 2 years to 43 million tonnes.
Figures on that scale are impossible to comprehend, so researchers came up with this comparison. Imagine something as big and heavy as the Eiffel Tower. Now imagine 4,500 Eiffel Towers. That's how much of this stuff gets chucked away every year.
Internationally, 80% of that ends up dumped in landfill, incinerated, or just cluttering up the homes of people who can't be bothered to dispose of it properly.
It's a responsibility of all. It's a responsibility of the producer, it's a responsibility of the consumer, and please regard the consumer not only as each and everybody who is now probably sitting in front of the TV. No, it's also the governmental organizations, the companies, etc.
It's very tempting if something fits in a black bag it ends up in a black bag, and at that point it's rubbish. It's either going to waste of energy or landfill, which is a real sin considering the work and the commodities that have gone into creating our gadgets that we love.
Manufacturers are legally bound in Britain to help pay for the collection and disposal of their old products. But by making and selling them cheaply, they've created a throwaway culture, where it's simpler to replace than repair. Ian Woods, Sky News.
The waste campaigner at Friends of the Earth, Julian Kirby, joins us now from OC in Essex. Good to see you, Julian. Just how much of an issue is this? The idea that these pieces of technological equipment which have outlived their usefulness could be damaging our planet?
Good afternoon. It's a massive issue. Sorry about the echo. We're improvising a bit with the room I'm in here. It's a really enormous issue. It's an enormous issue for the environment. A lot of this waste ends up not just in landfill and incineration, where it's a waste of those resources, and they of course also pollute themselves, but a lot of it ends up in our environment, whether that's on land or on seas. But the other aspect of which it's a really appalling environmental issue is that if we do reuse and recycle all of these materials, as we can do, then that would mean that we massively reduce the amount of land, of water, and of other resources that are required to make this stuff again in the first place. And to give you a sense of that kind of scale, the amount of water that the top 10 tech companies, your Apples and your Samsungs and those ilk, in 2011 were getting through every year was 3 times the amount of water in Loch Ness, 3 times all the amount of land that makes up the land area of Wales, those companies between them, every year. So if we recycle and reuse more, then that cuts down the pressure on the environment in the first place.
Is the way perhaps to encourage people to be rather more environmentally friendly and get this stuff into the recycling centres is pointing out the money that can be made out of it. As I discovered when I cleared out a kitchen drawer not that long ago, there's money to be made from your old mobile phones.
Yeah, absolutely. There is, and the piece that you just heard there, that you just screened was, and those facilities are fantastic. The amount of valuable materials that they get back from our gadgets, from our old computers and so on, really does show that there is literally, gold in that there muck. And we should be doing what we can as individuals to get our materials back into that kind of a waste stream, a recycling stream, but actually it's not as easy as it should be. And that's because governments haven't done enough to set up the infrastructure necessary to collect all of those materials, all of those gadgets. And setting up that infrastructure is expensive. So the companies that make this stuff in the first place, they're the people who are creating the problem, and they're making a lot of money, vast profits out of this. It's only fair that they should be paying more towards the systems required to collect what, at the end of the day, is their product and therefore their pollution.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, Julian, one of the reasons why they are making quite so much money is there is such a fast turnaround in technology these days. A personal computer that you buy 1 year could be obsolete 2-3 years down the line. And the fact is, there's going to be more of this waste accumulating unless we sort it out now.
Well, that's completely right, but it's also not a law of nature that the model, the marketing model, the buy, use for just a brief time and then discard model that we're operating to. It doesn't have to be like that. That is a choice, it's a strategy, a business model of the companies that are making these products. And mobile phones used to be used for much longer. The average life now is counted in months. And they're wanting to push new ones on us, designing them so that they appear to have not been working as well, or we need all the other sorts of drivers that we feel through marketing, through the way that products are made, are what drives that really, really quick turnover. But it doesn't have to be like that. Now, one of the ways in which that could change is if companies are given more of a responsibility to look after the product all the way through its lifespan, including how it's handled at the end. Now, that's called producer responsibility. And one of the models of sort of selling or use of these sorts of machines that we could shift to is one where these companies don't sell them to us, they hire them out to us. Now, if you've got that kind of a loan model, and that is a model that's growing more and more actually in industry, then that means that they will design their products so that they can reuse parts of them, they can take out components easily. And do you see that what that then drives is a much better recycling and reuse, because they're designing their products to be recycled and reused, because they're going to get them back instead of seeing them go into landfill.
Indeed. Julian, many thanks for giving up some of your time this Christmas Eve, and a very Merry Christmas to you and yours. Julian Kirby from Friends of the Earth.
And you too, thank you.
Stick with us. Coming up in the sport,